And now your host, Richard Thomas.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Miracle and the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, England. It's here at 0 degrees longitude that the Earth is divided into eastern and western hemispheres. A fitting place to start a show that's heading out in both directions in search of miracles from around the world. We begin thousands of miles to the east in the legendary city of Petra, Jordan, a vast complex of ancient temples and tombs. It's a place filled with history, mystery, and, of course, a miracle. The desert of Jordan is remote, barren, and mysterious. And as one group of British tourists are about to discover, extremely dangerous as well. The 5 young men and women were headed for the ancient city of Petra. Mark Flowers explains.
That part of Jordan is a spectacular drive as you're looking down over the great desert plains. The thing I didn't realize about Petra is it's so big. It's basically a complex of temples, tombs, houses. There's at least a couple of miles of the valley floor to walk through.
The group set off on foot, walking through a narrow gorge until the first ruin appeared, the treasury.
And then, if you want to see the really beautiful buildings, you have to climb up one of the mountains.
Elspeth Dugdale led the way.
When we started the ascent up the mountain, I did notice the first aid post at the bottom. I don't know why. I wasn't looking for one.
It was late afternoon as the group set off, but the temperature was still in the 90s. The climb would take nearly 45 minutes, and when they reached the top, they were exhausted but exhilarated by what they saw.
Right behind us was this amazing palace building, which is just huge. And I think I said something which I think is pretty immortal now, considering what happened next. I think I said something like, "This is just too perfect, isn't it?"
We decided that it would be a good end to this day to take a group photo. It was the only photo we'd have had of all of us together.
As Elsbeth's husband Jerry began moving stones to prop up the camera, he uncovered a yellow scorpion, the most deadly of its species. And moments later, Ian Gray was stung.
Ah! What's wrong? Stung by a scorpion.
I just looked at Ian and I looked at the scorpion, and you just thought, what's going to happen next?
As fellow traveler Caroline Hopkins ran for help, Jerry assessed the situation.
I just knew that a small scorpion could be fatal. The first thing to do was to stop the venom moving around the body, put some sort of tourniquet on.
I don't know anything about scorpions, but I know that if you get stung by a snake, you should try and capture the snake because it's important to get the right kind of anti-venom.
Let's see if we can get it in the bottle. You got it? Oh, fabulous.
Caroline returned a few minutes later with a local cafe owner.
Ian looked quite shocked, and his leg was hurting so much that it seemed to be stiffening up. He wasn't looking particularly great.
You're right. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
God, it's really painful.
Does it happen very much?
Yes, many times it's happened.
But he will be okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I make for him medicine.
His medicine consisted of slicing open the wound with a razor and applying sugar and a slice of potato over the cut.
It didn't quite tie up with what I was thinking, with small scorpions, especially small yellow scorpions, being potentially fatal. But I was standing there thinking, this guy must know what he's talking about, because he lives up there.
Thank you.
With the cafe owner saying it is very, very painful, but they do recover, that allayed our fears. Does it really hurt?
Well, it's sort of pins and needles, really. Sort of numbness all the way down this side of the leg.
It didn't seem to be getting any better. Because all I could think of, we need to get Ian down the mountain quickly.
I'd rather stay here for a few minutes if that's all right.
Really?
Yeah. No.
It was decided that Jerry and I should run down and that Mark and Caroline should stay.
See you later. See you later.
Yeah, okay. We set off running at quite a pace, but it's a very steep, rocky path, so we had to concentrate quite carefully. the first aid post. At the back of my mind was the lifeline. I thought, well, maybe that's why I noticed it on the way up.
I can't feel my mouth.
Meanwhile, Ian was beginning to exhibit all the symptoms of advanced scorpion venom poisoning.
You couldn't see it, but you could imagine it spreading all through his body, and it started to burn him as well.
They decided they couldn't wait any longer and would have to try to get Ian down the mountain. A 45-minute journey at best.
Great, thanks. And I was thinking, the one thing I remember about a venomous sting is keep the victim calm and elevate the affected part of the body. Well, that was his knee. And I was thinking, how are we going to get him down the mountain with his knee above his head? All I could think of to do was to talk to him. And I know it sounds daft, but kind of to make light of the situation, to try and make him laugh, because, if Ian looked into our eyes and saw that we were really frightened too, that he would get more frightened, and that kind of terror feeds on itself.
25 minutes had passed, and Elsbeth and Jerry were just arriving at the bottom of the mountain.
And everyone had gone. All the tourists seemed to have disappeared.
Look, they've gone.
The entire area appeared to be deserted.
Look, there. Our friend is up at the monastery. He's stung by a scorpion in his leg. Got a doctor?
Absolutely, we have doctors here.
Any medicine down here for this?
Nothing at all.
Any phones, anything like that?
Nothing at all.
Anything
Just
like that?
come with you to get him down.
And so we then, having come down the mountain, we then turned round to run back up again.
We must have met Ian and the party coming down about an hour and a half after he was stung.
Well done, yeah.
I was very relieved to see Ian. I thought that he did have that sort of pale grey look about him that was quite shocking to see.
We were hoping that there would be some sort of vehicle that could take us back to where our car was, so that we could take Ian to the local hospital. But of course we got down and there was nothing. We knew that there was still this massive hike back to where our car was.
I had visions of us making this slow progress, with time against us and daylight against us, back through the whole site. It would just be a nightmare to go back that way. There's a truck there. There might be somebody who can help. The cafe owner was loading up his pickup truck at the end of the day, clearly preparing to go, and he was, from a transport point of view, he was our only hope. Could you take us to a hospital or a clinic?
Yes, to a clinic, yes.
How far is it?
15 minutes.
Can you take us now?
Yes.
Steady.
It's getting dark.
Jerry was a bit frantic, and we were just thinking, we've got to get a move on, we've got to get a move on.
The town must be closing up by now.
Must be over 2 hours now.
Ian was barely conscious as they arrived in the city.
When we got to the clinic, I think first of all there was relief that we'd actually arrived somewhere.
Come on, you're doing great.
But it was quite strange. I don't remember seeing any signs outside that said it was a clinic.
I wasn't very optimistic at what sort of clinic could be up this stairway, whether it was going to be somebody operating out of a kitchen or what. It looked as if we were, popping into somebody's flat.
As soon as we got to the doctor's, things just started to happen, and the doctor went straight into battle action. Ian was going into anaphylactic shock. He started shaking and he started going pale and he started to have another reaction against the venom. I was very worried that even despite the antivenom and everything, that we were just too late.
Sugar. This is the scorpion? Yeah, this is the scorpion? Yeah. Okay, all right.
The doctor was putting up drips, and I thought by this time he would just be getting better, but he suddenly just dipped and seemed to crash.
Okay.
The doctor got him anti-venom, antihistamine, I think adrenaline or something else like that.
And then suddenly, the power failed.
We were trying to find Ian's backside with the light of my torch. In that kind of situation, it's great when you have something funny or calming happens because it's just such a relief.
I know you're a bit shy. And
The doctor moved him into another room and made him sit there until his blood pressure came back up.
Ian Gray was extremely grateful to the man who had saved his life.
The
doctor was amazing. He was very calm and efficient. It must have been quite a shock, I would think, to have us all suddenly turn up on his doorstep quite late at night.
But even more amazing was the fact that he'd arrived there at all. For Ian had been stung in one of the most remote and desolate places on Earth. And at a time of day when all available medical help had left the area. And then, just when they'd resigned themselves to having to walk out of the desert, a man and his truck miraculously appeared, carrying them back to civilization with only minutes to spare.
Everyone was amazing. I mean, I hadn't known the group we were with for very long, and obviously didn't know the locals at all until this all happened. But everyone was, well, I suppose I owed them my life.
And they, in turn, each learned a valuable lesson.
If you ever go out in the desert, you don't go poking around under bushes and trees and stones night or day without thinking about what's under them.
Greenwich, England is also home to the National Maritime Museum, which contains the largest collection of nautical memorabilia in the world. Nearly 2 million items dealing with every aspect of sailing. Well, we're going to add a sailing miracle to the list, and for it, we must travel to another distant land, Turkey, and a section of the Çoruh River known as the King Kong Rapids. And if the name doesn't scare you, believe me, the deadly currents will. The Çoruh River in northeastern Turkey is a popular destination for nature enthusiasts, especially whitewater rafters. To reach the rapids, you must first sail through a corridor of farming communities and past small towns of faded grandeur, until finally the raft enters the gorges and the pace quickens. It's here that the river narrows, growing faster and wilder. Turkish guide Vedat Karadağ explains.
The name of the river, Çoruh, means crazy by the local people because they assume that the river is really dangerous. It runs very fast, and they can't believe that Americans are coming here and running the rapids.
15 Americans had spent 4 days reaching the main gorge in the King Kong Rapids. Chuck O'Brien was among them.
It's a particularly long, difficult, and very, very challenging rapid.
Vedat was watching from the bank of the river.
I was up at the road, which we could look it down to the rapid, and it looked really big. I mean, high waves and big holes and all white water. And when the rafts were coming, then I was a little concerned that everything was going to be okay.
We were the first boat, and as we came around the corner to King Kong, the entry waves were big. The river was runnable, but it was on the margin. You could just feel it in the water. Those rapids were extremely large. The waves were big. They were crashing in on us. The boat was getting pushed around. When a wave breaks on you like that, your heart virtually stops. You just know that the worst has happened. I got up on the boat and immediately started counting heads. Saw that everyone was there except one person. That was Beth. She's just out of reach, maybe 100 feet downstream, taking a thrashing. She was getting just pounded by waves over and over, fighting for her life, fighting for her breath mostly. At that point, there was nothing we could do for Beth. She either had to be rescued by the boat behind us or she had to save herself.
The transport van sped along the edge of the river. VDOT knew that the team was in trouble, but did not realize that one of them was fighting for her life.
Okay, stop right here. Stop right here.
To find a place where we can try to throw in the safety line.
Give me the line. Give me the throw line.
Put up, get. Shoot, you got it.
Stanley, where's the other person?
And then we talked to the rafts. They said we don't have Beth. Beth is at back. But my God, she's in the river.
And the rapids were pulling her under.
I was becoming incredibly tired because the water was so strong and so difficult to swim against. But I was able to get over to the side of the river and grab hold of some branches. And I remember calling for someone to come help because the water was still, even there, was very strong. Luckily, there were a couple of Turkish gentlemen who had been watching, and they raced down the edge and pulled me out.
Are you okay, Beth?
She looked like she'd been through a war. Beth handled the whole situation extremely well. When accidents happen on wild rivers, it's sort of like Russian roulette. You don't know if you'll be floating through happily or if you'll be swimming through your worst nightmare.
Or if, by some miracle, you'll be saved. This magnificent building was once the country home of kings and queens who came here to escape the trials and tribulations of city life. Of course, part of the appeal was the wide open spaces, perfect for horseback riding. And today, horses continue to define rural English life. Our next story took place a stone's throw from here. It concerns a young girl, her favorite pony, and a night of sheer terror. A night that proved that country life can also have its share of trials and tribulations. For the Page family of Suffolk, England, horses are more than just their livelihood.
We have up to 30 horses in the yard. We teach riding mainly, but we also take people hacking. We are involved in every way, both financially and it's our great passion as well. My daughter Rosina is absolutely horse mad. She has been since she was a baby virtually. She now has a pony called Sabrina that she takes to shows and does various activities on.
Horses are the most important thing in my life, and I've been riding since I was 2 days old, or as far as I can remember anyway. Sabrina and I are the bestest of friends. I think we sort of go together because of that.
It's good. You pleased with that?
Yeah, yes. She always does her best for me.
In 1997, the Page family was celebrating Bonfire Night,
Wow, look at those fireworks! They're lovely, aren't they?
which included a fireworks display not far from their stables.
We were all standing round the fire, eating sausages and potatoes that I'd brought from the house. I just happened to look up through the trees.
Look, the barn, it's on fire!
There were flames right up in the roof under the eaves of the barn, which was full with well over 2,000 bales of hay and straw. Straw just goes up so fast. We just felt filled with terror for the horses. The first thing we wanted to do was to run and release them. It was already a raging inferno, there's no other way to describe it. We were just absolutely certain that the whole place was going to go.
Hello?
There's a fire at my stables.
Russell was in mid-call. Some burning straw got thrown across onto the roof of the office, which then went on fire.
I've got to go.
So he had to terminate the call, unfortunately, before he could actually describe fully where the stables are. I ran first to the horses nearest to the fire, Donna and Taffy, that were obviously the most at risk. Their eyes were wide and their nostrils dilated. They were too frightened to come with me, too frightened to trust me, even though they'd known me all their lives.
Come on, you're all right. Come on, walk on.
I went straight up to the top yard and started letting out horses. I've never ever seen horses, how frightened they were. You can just see it in their eye. Their stables were facing straight towards the fire, so they could actually see the fire. Well, I thought, well, he's going to get burnt, so I'm not going to stop trying to get him out. He's going to have to go out whether he likes it or not. Megan went out fairly quick. She's a very lively pony. Next, I think it was Hal. When he saw Megan go out, he galloped out.
Rosina had the difficulty that some of the ones she had released, instead of running out of the yard, had run into our indoor school, where she also had a whole bunch, including her own pony, Sabrina.
Go on, Sabrina, get out, go on. Go on, get out, go on.
I tried to get out Sabrina first, because obviously if Sabrina went out, all the others would follow.
Get out.
She would come forward with me, and then she would just suddenly run back again from all the sound. I couldn't get Sabrina out, and I was just so scared. I was convinced that she was going to get burnt.
The thing that was most overwhelming was the noise. We couldn't hardly think because there was such a roaring and cracking and banging going on.
Come on, Taffy.
As Rose continued to struggle with the frightened horses, Rosina arrived, terrified that her pony was going to die.
These won't come either past the flames. I'll leave them and come with you. Come on, quickly.
I didn't want to leave the two behind. At the same time, I knew it was absolutely first priority to rescue Sabrina, her pony. When we arrived at the entrance to the indoor school, there were about 7 horses and ponies just charging round and round like a wild herd. They were so frightened. There was a real risk of getting trampled underfoot.
My mum ordered me to stay right away, and she promised me she would get Sabrina out.
It was really difficult to know how to solve the situation. To begin with, we tried to get round behind the horses and herd them out, but they just were too busy galloping about and panicking completely. The end of the building was actually beginning to burn. It looked as though the whole indoor school was going to go up. And I really felt that it was hopeless for them unless we got them out.
And then, just when she'd given up all hope, a neighbor's vehicle pulls into the yard.
He quickly shouted and said, "Is there anything you could do?" And I said, we can't get the horses out of the school. He drove in behind them, which was a very brave thing to do. He had to drive right past the flames. He started doing everything he could to try and startle the horses enough to make them burst out. It was absolute pandemonium going on, with the horses panicking because they were frightened to go back and frightened to go forward. Their whole world had suddenly fallen apart for them. The people they trusted had been chasing them. There was bangs and crashes going on all the time. I don't think they knew what was happening to them. They just were totally petrified. He started tooting the horn very, very quickly and loudly and revving his engine as hard as he could. And that was the final clincher. I felt a huge surge of relief as the horses all burst for safety. They just went just like a wild herd. flew out the gate and into the night. We didn't know what direction they had gone in. They just went. We just heard thundering hooves disappearing into the distance.
By the time firefighters arrived, most of the horses had been freed. And then, a frightening discovery.
We then realised to our horror that there were still some horses in the stable block at the bottom yard who had actually not come out of their boxes. We hadn't realised they went out. The heat was so great and the flames were just burning within yards of their stable doors.
The radiated heat was so severe, it was far, far too dangerous to try and remove the horses from the front of the building. The horses had to be called via a hose.
I'll get a crew and we'll try and get in round the back, okay? Yeah, I'll keep this side protected. Okay.
We then started to chop the back of the stables out. The crew worked very hard to get through the wood, and eventually we did get through to the centre stable. We had access then to the walls either side of the horses.
Ryan, let's get this wall down quick.
Now, all that stood between the horses and freedom was a low concrete wall.
We started to knock the concrete down, which we thought was going to be a fairly easy task, but then suddenly realised that there was reinforced concrete. We feared very much for the safety of the horses, but we just had to do it. There was no other way. We had to get the wall down.
The horses in that block, the thoroughbreds, they were particularly panicky. There was no way we were going to be allowed to help at that stage because it would have been very, very dangerous for us to try and go in without fireproof clothing on. So we just had to stand there helplessly, saying prayers, really, that they would succeed in getting them out.
Once we got the hole large enough in the wall, we tethered the horses with a line, and we then led them out of the rear of the stable across the lawn.
They were just so amazing. They were able to lead them out just with a rope round their neck, and they came out like lambs.
The cause of the fire was never established, but it could have been a stray firework, but there's no way of knowing. It's a miracle that so many horses were saved that night, and it's down to the courage of the Zerner and the family that saved so much work for the fire service. It would have been unthinkable if they hadn't got so many horses out that night.
The other horses had scattered far and wide, but most of them hadn't actually gone all that far away, when eventually their natural curiosity made quite a few of them amble back towards home again. Sabrina, unfortunately, was one of the ones that didn't amble back.
Well, when I got into bed, I was still so convinced that she had died.
Are you all right, darling? Yeah, but what about Sabrina? Don't worry, I promise you'll be all right.
We just had to try and tell a little fib to her, a little white lie to her, that Sabrina was safe. And I just had to pray that by, first light I would find her, so that in the morning she would actually be there for her, which luckily she was.
I was just so relieved. It was like the happiest moment in my whole life.
And now, a year on, our stables are pretty well back to what they were. Rosina and Sabrina, I would say, are probably closer than ever after literally going through the fire together. They absolutely adore each other. They are complete kindred spirits, and they spend many happy hours pony clubbing, going to pony shows, just as they did before.
I don't think my life would have been complete without Sabrina, because, we just are completely part of each other.
It's little wonder that Great Britain is home to a national maritime museum. For centuries, their navy was the largest and strongest on Earth, and their trade ships controlled the 7 seas. One of their most frequent routes was to the land down under, Australia. And that's where we head now, to witness a miracle of human kindness captured on videotape. It started early one morning when lighthouse keeper Wayne Kelly walked down to a lookout and discovered 49 whales stranded on the beach.
They're strung out along the beach just underneath the lighthouse. A pitiful sight. It was quite devastating, really, because it's something that you don't expect. As you can see, some are still moving, so they are still alive. We then came back and phoned the police. Before everyone got here, I grabbed our video camera. Appears to be a baby. Such a disturbing sight looking back up the beach with all these beautiful whales. I think every radio station in Australia contacted us on the phone that morning.
To reveal 50 whales, the false killer species, strewn along the sands. 49, all struggling for life. The immensity of the rescue operation became apparent. They'll certainly need many volunteers.
The radio reports brought a handful of local volunteers racing to the beach. Rowan Peterson Shaw was among them.
It was a desperate sort of a feeling. There were very few people there at the time, and whales just stranded, and we didn't know what to do.
While Rowan concentrated on one of the larger whales, her father was busy with a smaller calf.
And they tried to put that one out.
He swam out, and then but he turned around and then came straight back in again, and nearly ran right over me. It just looked like a torpedo coming in through the surf.
Frank Peterson returned to the calf, unsure of what to do. By now, hundreds of people had found their way to the beach, hoping to help. But returning the whales to the water would not be an easy feat. Expert Carrie Hayes-Lovell explains.
The only way to successfully get them out is to get them out in a large group. You cannot do it on your own, and we do not have enough professionals that could just handle a mass stranding.
Any volunteers up there with wetsuits, would they like and want to come and help the whales in the water? Would they like to come and see me now, please?
The several days I was there was over 1,000 people.
The volunteers were instructed to keep the whales wet, to sit with them and comfort them while they prepared for a mass release. It was a group effort, and everyone pitched in, from young to old, including many military personnel. Ranger John Callahan was one of the leaders.
We couldn't attempt to release the whales back from that beach. We needed to find another beach that was less exposed to potential heavy seas.
It was decided that we would move them around the point to the other side where we had calm weather conditions.
For the next 2 days, they slowly and carefully transported the whales to the other, more protected side of the peninsula, where they were finally able to carry them into the waters and release them into several large groups.
General, just to reiterate, I'd just like to thank you very much. I don't want anyone to go yet, if you wouldn't mind, just in case we have a problem with this pod coming back onto the beach.
It was the third day, the morning of the third day, that we released the final group of whales. So it was a tremendous reward for all the volunteers that had worked there.
It was such a relief to know that these animals were finally free.
I felt very proud that I individually had saved all these whales and sent them off back to sea.
I thought I'd seen most things, but I hadn't ever seen or felt anything like that before.
It was an enlightening feeling, just like you were 10 foot high. Those little puffs as they were almost saying goodbye as they made their way out to sea.
Or perhaps they were saying thank you for the miracle that set them free. Well, that's our show for now. I'd like to thank the National Maritime Museum and the Royal Observatory for providing us with a base for our worldwide search for miracles. And a special thanks to everyone who shared their remarkable stories with us on It's a Miracle. It's our hope that whenever you need one, you'll find a miracle in your life too. Until next time, I'm Richard Thomas. Goodbye.